The clubhouse stood at the heart of Maple Ridge Estates like a symbol of belonging.
Let's make these
Every
records
brick had been
public.
paid for by the homeowners. Every flower surrounding the entrance had been planted using the community budget. Every light that glowed at sunset was powered by monthly HOA dues collected from every resident, regardless of age, background, or social status. Yet over the years, the building had quietly transformed from a shared community space into something entirely different. It had become the private kingdom of a handful of HOA board members. Families who had lived in Maple Ridge for decades remembered when birthdays, graduation parties, charity dinners, veterans appreciation events, and neighborhood celebrations filled the clubhouse every weekend. Children played freely on the lawn while grandparents exchanged stories beneath the old oak trees. But after several leadership changes, invitations slowly disappeared. Reservations mysteriously became unavailable. Applications were denied without explanation. Meanwhile, certain families seemed to enjoy unlimited access. Weekend after weekend, expensive private parties occupied the building. Luxury cars filled the parking lot. Caterers unloaded decorations, while ordinary homeowners received emails claiming the clubhouse was under maintenance. Everyone noticed. Few dared to complain. The HOA board had earned a reputation for making life difficult for anyone who challenged them. Violation letters, unexpected inspections, selective enforcement. Many residents simply stayed silent. Among those residents lived Daniel Carter. Daniel had purchased his modest home 12 years earlier after retiring from 27 years as a firefighter. He wasn't wealthy. He wasn't politically connected. He simply believed in community. His wife, Emily, taught second grade at the local elementary school. Together, they had raised their daughter, Lily, inside Maple Ridge Estates. Lily had grown up riding bicycles along the quiet streets, attending neighborhood holiday events, and dreaming of becoming an architect someday. Now she was preparing to graduate from college with honors. After years of scholarships, part-time jobs, and relentless determination, Lily had become the first person in the Carter family to earn a university degree. Daniel wanted to celebrate. Nothing extravagant. Just family. Friends. Neighbors. The clubhouse seemed like the perfect place. After all, every homeowner helped pay for it. Daniel submitted the reservation request nearly 4 months before graduation. He followed every rule, paid every required fee, completed every document, waited patiently. A week later, an email arrived. Reservation denied. Reason, scheduling conflict. Daniel accepted the answer without argument. He selected another weekend. Denied again. This time, the explanation mentioned maintenance. He tried a third date. Another rejection. Curiously, while walking his dog the following Saturday, Daniel noticed balloons tied to the clubhouse entrance. Luxury SUVs lined the parking area. Music echoed through the building. Servers carried trays of catered food inside. The maintenance clearly wasn't happening. The following weekend featured another celebration. Then another. Different decorations. Different guests. Always the same familiar HOA board members arriving first. Emily quietly began keeping notes. Denied dates. Actual events. Photographs. Emails. Calendar records. She wasn't looking for trouble. She simply believed facts mattered. Over the next month, her notebook filled with uncomfortable patterns. Nearly every denied reservation somehow became available for board members or their close friends. Public property had quietly become private privilege. Neighbors had noticed too. Mrs. Alvarez, a widow who had lived alone for 15 years, mentioned that her grandson's birthday reservation had been rejected. A military veteran shared that his retirement ceremony request had supposedly conflicted with repairs that never happened. A young couple hopping to celebrate their adoption of twin sisters had also received a denial. Each story sounded remarkably similar. Different families, same excuses. The Carter family realized something larger was happening. Daniel still wasn't interested in confrontation. He believed misunderstandings could usually be solved through respectful conversation. He requested a meeting with the HOA board. He brought copies of his applications, copies of denial emails. Nothing more. The meeting lasted less than 10 minutes. Daniel remained calm throughout. He simply asked how maintenance could repeatedly occur on weekends when private parties were visibly taking place. No clear explanation came. Instead, board members insisted scheduling decisions were confidential. Policies allowed discretion. Operational needs changed. Resources were limited. Everything sounded official. Nothing actually answered the question. Daniel left disappointed, but not defeated. Emily suggested letting the matter go. Lily, however, struggled with the idea. She had spent years studying ethics, public administration, and civic planning during college. To her, communities functioned only when rules applied equally. She wasn't angry because her graduation party had been denied. She was troubled because fairness itself seemed optional. Over the following weeks, Lily quietly began researching HOA governance. She discovered state regulations regarding nonprofit associations, financial transparency, equal access to community facilities, record retention, open meeting requirements. She wasn't searching for revenge. She wanted understanding. The deeper she looked, the more unusual Maple Ridge appeared. Reservation logs weren't publicly available. Meeting minutes skipped important discussions. Budget reports contained broad categories with little detail. Several clubhouse expenses seemed unusually high despite frequent claims that maintenance limited resident access. Meanwhile, social media told another story. Board members proudly shared photographs from lavish gatherings held inside the supposedly unavailable clubhouse. Birthday celebrations, wine tastings, holiday dinners, private business networking events, even anniversary receptions. The timestamps matched weekends when ordinary homeowners had been denied access. Emily organized everything chronologically. Daniel preferred not to assume wrongdoing. Lily insisted documentation mattered more than assumptions. Soon, a simple family notebook evolved into a carefully organized binder. Every denial, every photograph, every public post, every maintenance notice, every calendar conflict. Patterns became impossible to ignore. Word quietly spread. Neighbors began visiting the Carter home after dinner. Not to gossip, to compare experiences. Each person brought another piece of the puzzle. Denied reservations. Unexpected rule changes. Emails. Letters. Receipts. Some residents admitted they had paid reservation deposits years earlier, but never received refunds after cancellations. Others described being told the clubhouse lacked staff while simultaneously watching catered events through the windows. An elderly couple revealed they had stopped requesting reservations altogether because rejection had become routine. No one had realized how many others shared the same experience. For years, silence had isolated everyone. Now those separate frustrations formed one unmistakable picture. Still, Daniel remained cautious. He reminded everyone that accusations required proof. Communities healed through truth, not rumors. His steady approach earned unexpected respect. Residents, who normally avoided conflict, began trusting him. They knew he wasn't seeking power. He simply wanted fairness restored. Meanwhile, inside the HOA board, whispers had already begun. Someone noticed neighbors speaking more frequently. Attendance at monthly meetings slowly increased. Residents asked polite but increasingly detailed questions. Financial reports received closer attention. Reservation policies suddenly became a topic of discussion. The board dismissed concerns publicly. Privately, anxiety spread. One board member quietly suggested releasing reservation records to calm everyone. Another argued transparency would only encourage more questions. Instead, they voted to tighten document access. Requests now required additional forms, longer processing periods, administrative fees. The barriers grew higher. Ironically, those new restrictions only deepened community suspicion. Emily updated the binder again. Lily continued researching. Daniel continued encouraging patience. None of them imagined how much larger the story was about to become. Because hidden beneath years of reservation, denials, lay something even more troubling than favoritism. The clubhouse had become only the visible symptom of a much deeper misuse of community trust. And within days, one unexpected discovery would transform frustrated homeowners into determined citizens, searching for answers no one on the HOA board wanted revealed. The growing stack of papers on Daniel Carter's dining room table no longer looked like the notes of a disappointed homeowner. It resembled the beginning of a serious investigation. What had started with a denied graduation party had quietly evolved into something far larger than a clubhouse reservation dispute. Every new document connected another piece of a pattern that had remained hidden only because no one had ever compared their experiences. The Carter family never imagined themselves leading anything. Daniel had spent his career running toward emergencies, not political battles. Emily believed communities thrived through kindness and cooperation, while Lily had only recently graduated and hoped to begin her career designing public spaces where everyone felt welcome. None of them wanted conflict. They simply wanted fairness. As more neighbors learned about the binder of reservation records, they began arriving at the Carter home carrying folders of their own. Some had saved rejection emails for years without believing they would ever matter. Others brought printed photographs showing the clubhouse bustling with private celebrations on dates when official notices claimed the building was closed for repairs. A few even had handwritten calendars marking each denial they had received. Each story sounded different on the surface. Together, they revealed the same system. A retired nurse had been denied permission to organize a community blood drive because the clubhouse supposedly needed electrical repairs. Yet photographs from that very afternoon showed an extravagant birthday celebration attended by several HOA board members. A military family had hoped to hold a welcome home celebration after a deployment overseas. Their request had been rejected because of capacity limitations. Hours later, luxury vehicles filled the parking lot while a private business networking event took place inside. A young couple seeking to host an adoption celebration for two sisters received notice that staffing shortages prevented reservations that weekend. Meanwhile, dozens of guests enjoyed a catered anniversary banquet organized by one of the board members' close friends. None of those families had ever spoken to one another. Now they realized they all shared the same experience. Emily carefully organized every document into chronological order. Lily created digital copies of everything, scanning emails, photographs, payment receipts, newsletters, and official notices. Daniel insisted that every piece of evidence be verified before it entered the growing collection. If they intended to question the HOA, facts had to be stronger than emotions. The binder soon became 3 binders. One focused on reservation denials. One documented photographs and social media posts. The third contained financial records obtained from annual HOA reports available to homeowners. It was while reviewing those financial reports that Lily noticed something unusual. Every year, enormous amounts of money had been allocated to clubhouse maintenance. Roof repairs, floor restoration, electrical upgrades, furniture replacement, kitchen renovations. painting, security improvements, air conditioning servicing. The expenses appeared reasonable individually. Collectively, they seemed excessive. The clubhouse looked almost exactly as it had 10 years earlier. Neighbors who regularly walked past the building could not remember seeing major renovations. Daniel suggested there might be invoices explaining the costs. Emily agreed. The HOA bylaws clearly stated that homeowners had the right to inspect many association records. Lily drafted a polite written request asking to review financial documents related to clubhouse expenditures over the previous 5 years. The request was respectful, professional, specific. 2 weeks later, the response arrived. Request denied. The explanation claimed the records contained confidential vendor information. Lily researched state HOA regulations again. Confidential vendor pricing did not automatically prevent homeowners from reviewing financial records funded by HOA dues. The denial itself appeared questionable. Instead of becoming discouraged, the Carter family submitted another request, narrowing it to payment summaries rather than detailed invoices. Another rejection followed. This time, the HOA cited administrative burden. Neighbors began noticing the repeated refusals. Many wondered why simple financial transparency seemed so difficult. At the next monthly HOA meeting, attendance doubled. Residents filled nearly every chair. Some stood along the walls. Others waited outside the meeting room. The board appeared surprised by the turnout. Questions began politely. How were reservation priorities determined? Why did maintenance always seem to coincide with homeowner requests? Could residents review reservation logs? Would the board consider publishing clubhouse availability online? Each question received lengthy answers without clear explanations. Policies were complicated. Procedures were evolving. Operational flexibility remained important. Nothing directly addressed the concerns. Daniel watched quietly. He noticed something interesting. Whenever residents asked about the clubhouse, several board members avoided eye contact with one another. Their prepared confidence slowly faded. One board member repeatedly shuffled papers without referring to them. Another interrupted questions before they finished. Emily recognized nervous behavior after years of teaching children who tried hiding unfinished homework. Something felt different. After the meeting ended, an elderly resident approached Daniel privately. Mr. Wallace had lived in Maple Ridge since the community was first built nearly 25 years earlier. He spoke softly. Years ago, he explained, reservation logs had been posted publicly inside the clubhouse lobby. Everyone could see available dates. Everyone followed the same rules. That system disappeared shortly after the current leadership gained control. He also remembered volunteers handling many clubhouse events rather than expensive outside vendors. His memories raised even more questions. Days later, another unexpected visitor arrived at the Carter home. A landscaping contractor who had previously worked in Maple Ridge introduced himself. He no longer serviced the community, but he remembered something unusual from several years earlier. According to his records, landscaping invoices around the clubhouse had remained relatively small despite annual budget reports, showing dramatic increases in grounds maintenance spending. He had always assumed another company handled additional work. Looking at recent photographs, he couldn't identify where those improvements supposedly existed. He couldn't prove wrongdoing. He simply found the numbers difficult to understand. Lily added another note to the growing file. Questions continued multiplying. Then something happened that no one expected. An anonymous envelope appeared inside Daniel's mailbox one rainy Tuesday evening. No return address. No name. Inside rested several photocopied documents. Reservation schedules. private event calendars, internal planning notes, highlighted dates. The documents appeared to compare homeowner requests with private bookings. Many homeowner applications carried handwritten notations reading, "Decline." The same dates later listed board-sponsored gatherings. Emily carefully examined every page. Some carried official HOA formatting. Others appeared copied from internal spreadsheets. Daniel immediately cautioned everyone against assuming authenticity. Anonymous documents required verification. Still, the information matched many denial dates already documented in their binders. If genuine, the papers suggested reservation outcomes had been decided long before applications were officially reviewed. Lily compared the anonymous schedules against publicly available social media photographs. The dates aligned almost perfectly. The pattern became harder to dismiss as coincidence. Rather than release the documents publicly, Daniel chose patience. He believed accusations, without verification, would only divide neighbors. Instead, he focused on confirming every detail independently. His careful approach earned even greater trust throughout Maple Ridge. Residents appreciated that he refused to exaggerate or spread rumors. He pursued facts, not headlines. Word spread quickly that homeowners were organizing records together. Attendance at HOA meetings continued increasing. Volunteers offered legal research. Accountants living in the neighborhood volunteered to review financial summaries. Retired administrators examined procedural rules. Teachers organized communication. Veterans helped coordinate respectful public discussions. Without intending to, Daniel had inspired something remarkable. Neighbors who barely knew each other began working together. The clubhouse had once represented community. Ironically, the effort to reclaim fairness was creating a stronger community than the building itself ever had. Inside the HOA board, confidence continued eroding. Emergency meetings became more frequent. Emails circulated rapidly among board members. Policy updates appeared almost weekly. Reservation procedures suddenly changed again. Financial records became harder to request. Meeting agendas shortened. Public comment periods shrank. The board believed tightening control would protect its authority. Instead, every new restriction convinced more residents that transparency was being avoided. One evening, while reviewing another batch of financial summaries, Lily noticed a vendor name repeated dozens of times across multiple years. The payments were unusually large. The company provided clubhouse management services. Yet none of the neighbors had ever seen employees from that business operating the facility. Curious, she began researching the company. What she discovered stopped everyone in the room. The business address matched the home address of one of the HOA board members. The realization settled over the Carter family in complete silence. The clubhouse reservation abuse had only been the beginning. The money itself was now leading toward a question that could change the future of Maple Ridge forever. The discovery of the matching addresses changed everything. Until that evening, the Carter family had been investigating what appeared to be unfair treatment involving clubhouse reservations. Now, the possibility that HOA money had been flowing toward a company connected to one of the very people approving community expenses raised questions far more serious than favoritism. Even then, Daniel refused to jump to conclusions. He reminded everyone gathered around the dining room table that matching addresses alone did not prove misconduct. Businesses could operate from home offices. Relationships between vendors and board members were not automatically improper. Facts, not assumptions, would determine the truth. His calm approach became the foundation of the entire effort. Instead of launching accusations across social media, Daniel encouraged patience. Emily continued organizing evidence. Lily verified public records one document at a time. Every claim required proof. Every timeline had to be accurate. The process took weeks. Neighbors volunteered their evenings. Retired accountants examined annual budgets. Former office managers reviewed meeting minutes. A local attorney who had recently moved into Maple Ridge offered to explain the homeowner's legal rights without charging anyone. The attorney carefully reviewed the HOA bylaws, financial reports, and publicly available documents. His conclusion surprised everyone. He explained that homeowners had the legal right to request a special membership meeting if enough residents signed a petition. They could also vote to elect new board members according to the governing documents. The solution was not revenge. It was participation. For years, most homeowners had ignored HOA elections because they assumed nothing would change. Now they understood something important. Communities belong to the people who choose to participate. Within days, volunteers began visiting neighbors, not to spread rumors, but to share verified information. Every conversation remained respectful. No insults. No threats. No exaggerated stories. Only documented facts. Residents were shown copies of denied reservation requests alongside photographs, proving the clubhouse had hosted private events on those same dates. They reviewed financial summaries, showing unusually large maintenance expenses year after year. They learned about the repeated refusals to provide records despite homeowner requests. Many residents who had never attended an HOA meeting suddenly realized how disconnected they had become from decisions affecting their own neighborhood. The petition spread quietly. Retirees signed. Young families signed. Military veterans signed. Teachers signed. Business owners signed. Longtime residents who had avoided HOA politics for years added their names. Within 3 weeks, the required number of signatures had nearly doubled. The board could no longer ignore the growing movement. An official notice announced a special homeowners meeting. For the first time in years, the clubhouse would be filled not with private celebrations, but with the very people whose monthly dues had built and maintained it. On the evening of the meeting, every chair was occupied long before the scheduled start. Families stood along the walls. Neighbors gathered outside the entrance. Some residents who had never met one another smiled as they shared stories of why they had come. The atmosphere felt different. There was frustration, certainly, but there was also hope. Daniel had been asked by dozens of neighbors to speak. He accepted only after insisting on one condition. The evening would focus on facts and solutions, not personal attacks. When his turn arrived, he carried no dramatic presentation. Only the 3 binders that had begun with lilies denied graduation party. One by one, the documents told the story. Reservation denials. Maintenance notices. Photographs from the same dates. Budget summaries. Meeting minutes. Public records. Everything had been organized chronologically. Nothing had been altered. Nothing relied on rumor. The evidence spoke for itself. As homeowners quietly reviewed copies distributed throughout the room, expressions shifted from confusion to disbelief. Many realized their own experiences were not isolated incidents. They had all been treated differently while continuing to pay the same dues. The board attempted to defend its decisions. They described administrative discretion, operational flexibility, changing priorities. But every explanation collided with documented timelines. Questions multiplied. Answers became shorter. Several board members who had projected confidence for years suddenly struggled to explain inconsistencies between financial reports and public records. Then Lily presented the final piece. She explained how public business filings connected one frequently paid vendor to the address of a board member. She carefully emphasized that homeowners deserved an independent review rather than assumptions. Her professionalism impressed everyone in attendance. She wasn't demanding punishment. She was requesting transparency. That distinction mattered. After nearly 4 hours of discussion, homeowners voted. By an overwhelming margin, they approved an independent financial audit. They also voted to hold a new board election at the earliest date allowed under the governing documents. For the first time in years, applause filled the clubhouse. Not because anyone had lost, because the community had finally been heard. Over the next several months, the independent audit examined years of records. Its findings confirmed multiple governance failures. Reservation policies had been applied inconsistently. Documentation requirements had not always been followed. Several vendor relationships should have been disclosed to homeowners, but were not. Financial oversight procedures required significant improvement. Although investigators found no evidence supporting every rumor that had circulated through the neighborhood, they concluded that the HOA had failed its obligation to operate transparently and equally. The report recommended sweeping reforms. Homeowners embraced every one of them. The election that followed transformed Maple Ridge. Most of the previous board members either resigned or were replaced. The newly elected board included teachers, veterans, retirees, engineers, young parents, and longtime residents. Daniel declined every request to become HOA president. He believed leadership should rotate rather than concentrate around one person. Instead, he agreed to chair a volunteer transparency committee that would help future boards remain accountable. Emily volunteered to organize community events. Lily helped create an online reservation system where every homeowner could see available dates in real time. No hidden calendars. No secret priorities. Every reservation would be processed in the order received. The system automatically recorded approvals and denials for all homeowners to review. Within months, the clubhouse felt completely different. Children celebrated birthdays. Military families hosted welcome home gatherings. Graduation parties returned. Holiday dinners filled the halls with laughter. Charity fundraisers supported local shelters. Neighbors who had barely spoken for years now worked side by side, decorating the building they had finally reclaimed together. One Saturday afternoon, nearly a year after the investigation began, the Carter family finally held the graduation celebration that had started everything. It was delayed by 12 months. Yet somehow, it felt even more meaningful. Lily's diploma rested beside family photographs. Neighbors filled the clubhouse. Some had once feared speaking at HOA meetings. Now they laughed together beneath the same roof that had once symbolized exclusion. Daniel looked around the room. He saw veterans sharing stories with teenagers, teachers congratulating new graduates, children running freely across the lawn, retirees smiling as music drifted through open windows. The clubhouse had not changed. The people had. The greatest victory had never been winning an argument or exposing unfair treatment. It had been reminding an entire neighborhood that communities are strongest when ordinary people refuse to surrender fairness, honesty, and respect. Power had once been used to divide them. Truth had brought them back together. And every time the clubhouse doors opened for another family celebration, every homeowner remembered a lesson that would never again be forgotten. Buildings belong to those who pay for them. Communities belong to those who protect them.